Hello everyone. Today I'll continue telling the story of the single mother dieu Han. Wishing you all a peaceful day. Tai once confessed his feelings to Han, but no matter how hard he tried, she only saw him as a friend. The more he watched Han and Tan happy together, the more a prickly jealousy rose inside Tai. The news that Han was pregnant by Tan hit him like a hard blow to his pride. Tai could not accept that the woman he loved belonged to someone else. A twisted thought gradually took shape in his mind. If I can't have her, then no one may have her. From then on, Tai began to nurture plans for revenge. He silently observed Han and Tan, memorizing their habits and the places they frequented. At first it was only a few insinuating remarks dropped around the boarding house, enough to get people whispering that Han was pregnant before marriage. But Tai's jealousy kept growing, turning him into someone different. He started to devise a clear plan. Create troubles that would make Tan suspected at work and make Han suffer under public pressure. Tai impersonated others, sent anonymous messages slandering Han to Tana's colleagues. He deliberately circulated rumors that Han had a complicated past, causing people to look at her differently. Not satisfied with that, Tai also sought ways to interfere with Tana's job, exposing some internal information so that Tan would be reprimanded by his superiors. Everything was orchestrated so cleverly that nobody knew who was behind it. Han gradually felt exhausted by the whispers, while Tan was frustrated by the constant problems. Little distances and small arguments began to appear between them under the weight of pressure. Tai watched it all with a bitter satisfaction. He knew he was destroying someone else's happiness, yet he felt as if he were reclaiming something that had been taken from him. But the more he sank into the darkness within, the less human he became. What had once been sincere feeling had narrowed to hatred and selfishness. Tai no longer hesitated. He moved from dark thoughts into action, but every move he made was cloaked in subtlety. Not brute blows but knives hidden in the shadows, sharp enough to pull them into a spiral of doubt without revealing him. It began with small things that struck at their weak points. Tai hired a few opportunistic acquaintances to send anonymous messages, posted doctored photos with sensational captions on local social media, snippets just enough to get people gossiping, to make Han's mother worry, to make neighbors treat her with caution. Such rumors didn't directly assault her honor, but they created an oppressive atmosphere for a woman who was pregnant. Then Tai turned toward Tana's work, not by attacking his competence, but by manufacturing situations that forced Tan to explain himself. A delayed contract, a strange invoice, a few mistimed emails. These events were arranged to make superiors suspicious. Tan, normally confident, faced trusting glances of doubt from colleagues and bosses for the first time. He tried to clear his name, but the pressure mounted, compounded by Han's frequent illness from pregnancy. Small gaps grew into larger ones. Tai also targeted Tana's pride. During one meeting, someone carelessly repeated a rumor about dishonesty at work. It made Tan lose his temper. He loudly denied it, then looked back toward Han in the row behind and saw the fatigue on her face. Han, sensitive by nature, began to blame herself. Was her presence dragging him down? That question planted itself in their minds and robbed them of many sleepless nights. To complicate matters, Tai staged scenes. Once he hired a stranger to show up at the common yard and feign testimony for a vague accusation about Han's past. Another time he sent a forged letter to Tana's company prompting the HR department to open an internal investigation. The goal wasn't total destruction, but deepening suspicion so they would grow weary and start doubting each other. Yet Tai was not careless. He knew how to keep distance and use others as shields. Whenever there was a slip-up, he covered it, choosing the most covert moments to strike. Every action was planned during sleepless nights, and in his heart exhilaration was laced with sorrow. Seeing them struggle eased him for a moment, but when he saw Han weep from misunderstanding, a corner of his heart still ached. On Han and Tana's side, the initial pressure crushed them, but then they began to fight back in different ways. Tan sought a lawyer to address the baseless accusations. Han confided her worries to several close friends so she would not feel alone. One perceptive, persistent friend of Han's noticed the coincidences in the accidents. The same strange phone number, the same car scene near where letters were sent, emails with similar patterns. That friend quietly documented and collected every small piece of evidence. When Tai realized someone was tracing the trail, he panicked, but he did not stop. This time he decided to escalate. Arrange a public misunderstanding that would humiliate Tan in front of his co-workers and simultaneously fabricate evidence to make Han question Tana's motives. The night before the event, Tai stood alone in the dark, thinking about the future. If the plan succeeded, everything would fall apart. If it failed, he might lose everything, even the remaining humanity that had once loved Han. That morning, the company where Tan worked was holding a signing ceremony for a major contract with a foreign partner, a project he had been managing for months. Although heavily pregnant, Han still came to show her support. She sat in the back row, eyes filled with pride as she watched her man. But she had no idea that on this very day, Tai had already set everything in motion. A few days earlier, he had posed as a technical staff member, hacked into the company's email system, and sent a forged contract, one that made it look as though Tan had received a personal thank you payment. When the signing ceremony began, the foreign representative suddenly asked to clarify a prepayment mentioned in the email they'd received. The entire hall fell silent. Tan froze, hurriedly checking his inbox, and went pale when he saw that the email had indeed been sent from his account. His boss gave him a cold, distrustful stare, while in the back Han clutched her belly, heart pounding wildly. Whispers broke out around the room. Did he take money? Wow, never thought Tan would do that. Every eye turned to him while Tai, standing in a shadowed corner near the door, allowed himself a faint smirk, his eyes glinting with cruel satisfaction. He had waited a long time for this moment. Tan tried to stay calm, insisting that he had never sent such an email, that someone must have impersonated him. But the evidence was undeniable, and his words sounded weak. Han rushed to his side, took his hand and through tears said, "I believe you. Someone's trying to ruin you." Her words silenced the room, but they also made Tai clench his fists in fury. Even now she still stood by Tan. That night, rumors spread like wildfire. Tan was suspended pending investigation, and Han was devastated. But at that moment, her close friend Thursday decided to act. She recalled receiving several mocking anonymous messages about Han, and had seen a strange man loitering near Han's house multiple times. Quietly, Thursday began investigating. She traced the IP address of the forged email. It led to a small internet cafe that Tai often visited. She said nothing at first, asking a friend in telecommunications to verify the data. The results matched perfectly. Tai was the culprit. Thursday gathered all the evidence, CCTV footage, login logs, message copies, and arranged to meet Han and Tan. That evening, in their small home, Han burst into tears as the evidence appeared before her eyes. Tan stood silent, overwhelmed with disbelief and anger. "It was Tai," Han whispered, trembling. Tana's eyes blazed as he gripped her hand tightly. "If he wants us to suffer, I'll show him. We won't be defeated." The next day, the two of them and Thursday went to the director with the evidence. Everything became clear. Tai was exposed, but he refused to admit it, struggling to shift the blame. When confronted face to face, he looked at Han with desperate hatred and shouted, "Why, Han? I loved you, but you chose him." Han stayed silent, tears streaming down her face. Tan stepped forward, voice cold. "Love isn't about hurting others, Tai. You've gone too far." Tai collapsed, his eyes red and empty, realizing he had lost everything. Once the truth came out, he was cornered. Every piece of evidence proved he was behind the lies and sabotage that had torn Tan and Han's lives apart. Driven mad, Tai couldn't bear the thought that all his schemes were ending, and that the two might find peace again. That afternoon, when Han and Tan went to meet Tai to talk things through, she only wanted to persuade him to stop, to confess and seek leniency. But Tai wouldn't listen. He laughed bitterly, eyes bloodshot with rage and despair. "What makes you better than me, Han? Why does he get everything and I get nothing?" he roared, his voice hoarse. Han stepped back, trying to stay calm. "Tai, it's not too late. Please stop before you destroy yourself completely." But her words were like oil on fire. Tai lunged forward, gripping her shoulders, his eyes wild. Tan rushed to intervene, but before he could reach them, Tai shoved Han hard. She fell to the floor. A sharp pain tore through her abdomen. Clutching her belly, she gasped for breath, sweat beading on her forehead. Tan panicked, rushing to her side, screaming, "Hun, are you okay? Somebody help." Tai froze, his face drained of color. He hadn't meant to hurt her, not like this. Sirens wailed in the distance, mixing with the roar of rain that had just begun to fall. A chaotic, tragic evening. At the hospital, Han was rushed into emergency care in critical condition. The doctor urged calm, but Tan was falling apart. He gripped her hand outside the room, voice trembling. "Please save her. Save my wife and our baby." Meanwhile, Tai was detained by the police at the scene. His face was pale, hands shaking. As they led him away, he couldn't look back. In his ears, Tana's desperate cries for Han echoed, filled with pain and despair. Han was saved, though the doctors warned she needed absolute rest. The trauma could endanger her baby. When she awoke, she weakly held Tana's hand, tears rolling down her cheeks. I'm okay. The baby's still safe, right?" Tan squeezed her hand, his voice choked. "Yes, both of you are safe now. Promise. I'll never let anyone hurt you again." The incident shocked everyone. Tai was prosecuted for assault and intentional injury. Before being taken away, he asked to see Tan one last time. In a small room, his voice trembled. "I didn't mean to. I just wanted her to look at me one more time." Tan said nothing for a while, then replied quietly, "What good is that, Tai, when you almost killed the woman you loved?" Tai lowered his head, tears hitting the cold floor. He knew it was over. In the days that followed, Han recovered under careful care. Tan stayed by her side every night, never leaving. The dim yellow hospital light reflected on his tired but determined face. He knew that after this ordeal, nothing would ever be the same, but at least they still had each other. And somewhere far away in a damp prison cell, Tai lay awake through the nights, haunted by that fatal shove, the one that cost him everything, even the last fragment of humanity within him. In the days following the incident, the hospital became a temporary refuge for Han and Tan. The cold white room, the steady beeping of the heart monitor, all seemed to remind them how close they had come to losing everything. Han lay in bed, her face pale but her eyes calmer now. The doctor said the baby was stable, but she needed complete rest and to avoid all stress. Tan sat beside her, sleepless for many nights, his hand holding hers tightly. Each time Han stirred, his heart clenched with fear. One morning, Han woke to see Tan asleep at the edge of the bed, his head resting against her arm. She gently brushed her fingers through his hair and whispered weakly, "Go home and rest. I'm fine now." Startled, Tan looked up, worry clouding his eyes. "No, I'll stay here with you. I'm afraid that if I let my guard down, I might lose you again." Han looked at him, tears rolling down her cheeks. She knew that fall hadn't just hurt her body. It had scarred both their hearts. She had once believed love alone could conquer all storms, but now she understood. Happiness must be guarded with resilience and trust stronger than ever before. Since that day, Tan had changed. He spoke less but cared for her with tender precision. Every morning, he rose early to buy porridge, reminded the nurse to check her blood pressure, and read soft stories aloud so her mind wouldn't wander to dark thoughts. As for Han, she was no longer the fragile woman who merely endured. The ordeal had taught her that true love isn't about waiting to be loved. It's about standing back up together after being broken. One morning, as sunlight poured through the hospital window, Han sat by the sill, gazing at the small flower garden outside. The breeze brushed gently across her face. She placed her hand over her belly and whispered, "My baby, I was so scared, but because of you I've learned to be strong." Behind her, Tan heard every word. He walked up quietly and wrapped his arms around her from behind, his voice low and warm. "I promise from now on there will only be peace. No more tears, no more fear." In that moment, both of them understood. They had crossed the line between loss and hope. And the child growing inside Han was their gift, their anchor, the beginning of a new chapter. One where love was no longer fragile, but forged in faith and tears. After more than a month of treatment, Han was finally discharged from the hospital. That morning a light drizzle fell. Not heavy, but just enough to make the air fresh and cool. Tan held an umbrella over her, gently supporting her with each step. He didn't speak much. He just watched her every movement in silence, as though afraid that if she stumbled even once, everything would collapse again. The small house they lived in was now filled with an uncommon peace. Han took time off work to rest and care for her pregnancy. Tan began working from home more often, always making sure to come back early so they could have dinner together. Every evening they would sit side by side, talking about their baby's future. Though worries still lingered, both believed that after the storm, this hard-won happiness was worth cherishing above all else. Sometimes Han still dreamt of that terrible afternoon, the moment Tai shoved her, the searing pain, and Tana's desperate cries mingling with the wail of the ambulance siren. Each time she woke, she would shiver and place a hand on her belly, as if to reassure the child inside. Tan knew, and that was why he never strayed far from her side. One morning, as Han was making milk in the kitchen, Tan came out from the living room with a grave expression. He had just received a phone call from the police. They said, Tai escaped from the detention center. The glass in Han's hand trembled, her eyes widened. Escaped? How could he escape? They're not sure yet. He's on the run. They told us to be careful. The air in the house suddenly turned heavy. Tan immediately tightened their security, added new locks, changed phone numbers, and avoided going out at night. But even with all the precautions, fear still crept into their hearts, especially Han's. Every time she heard a noise outside the door, she flinched. A week later, Tan had to go on a short 2-day business trip, leaving Han home alone. That night, the wind howled, rattling the window pane. She got up to close it when she heard footsteps outside in the yard. A chill ran down her spine. She froze, clutching her phone, ready to call Tan. Then came 3 slow, deliberate knocks on the door. "Knock." Han's voice trembled as she whispered, Who's there?" No answer. Only a folded piece of paper slid through the gap under the door, landing softly on the tile floor. She stared at the messy handwriting, scrawled as if in a hurry. "I just want to see you once, to say a real apology." Signed underneath Tai. Han's hands went cold. She didn't know where he was, near or far, but just thinking of that wild look in his eyes on the day he was arrested made her shudder. Tan rushed home that night when he heard the news and called the police. Officers searched the area around the house but found no clear trace, only a few faint footprints in the wet soil near the fence. From that day on, life was no longer peaceful for Han and Tan. They moved temporarily to another apartment for safety. Yet one night, while Han was sleeping, the phone rang. The screen showed an unknown number. She hesitated, then answered. On the other end came a hoarse male voice, quiet but distinct. "Don't be afraid. I won't hurt you. I just need to tell you something. You have to know. I wasn't the only one who wanted to tear you two apart." The words made Han's heart tighten. She gripped the phone, her voice trembling. What do you mean?" But the line had already gone dead. Han sat there in silence, tears streaming down her face. A vague dread stirred inside her, the feeling that behind Ty there was still someone else. A hidden hand in the shadows still pulling the strings.
Hello mọi người, rất vui được gặp lại mọi người trong video của mình. Cảm ơn mọi người đã xem hết video ngày hôm nay của mình. Video của mình đang kể về câu chuyện của Hân và Thành. Và trong lần xảy ra sự cố này thì rất may mắn rằng Hân vẫn giữ được thai nhi và không bị ảnh hưởng nhiều đến sức khỏe. Nhưng mà tên Ti đã bất ngờ trốn thoát khỏi tù và ra ngoài tìm kiếm Hân và Thành để trả thù. Liệu rằng Hân và Thành có vượt qua được biến cố tiếp theo hay không? Mọi người nhớ đón xem ở video tiếp theo nha. Để không bỏ lỡ video nào, mọi người nhớ like, share, bật chuông thông báo để nhận thông báo khi mình đăng video mới nhất. Cảm ơn mọi người đã ủng hộ những video của mình trong suốt thời gian qua. Hy vọng sẽ gặp lại mọi người trong video tiếp theo. Xin chào và hẹn gặp lại mọi người nha.